You're listening to Sirens, a true crime podcast, brought to you by the Sirens Network. This podcast contains explicit content, so listener discretion is advised. The opinions expressed on this podcast are solely the views of the hosts and do not reflect the views of affiliates, associates, or sponsors of this podcast.
This is Sirens,
a true crime podcast.
All right, so today we are going to be talking about the Osage Murders. And guess what? I'm not presenting. I have Mandy McNeely here with me. And Mandy, you teach this in your class, right?
I do, yes. It is actually my final assignment in my victimology course.
So you are going to teach me about it today.
Okay, I will. This case is one, there's actually many cases within just one case, you know, surrounding one man, but there's so many cases inside of this. And it is one that has really kind of stuck with me for years since I started teaching victimology course, and then I wrote the course and I put this case in it knowing about it but not really like just feeling it. And then once I started to learn more about it, I realized how many layers there are.
Yeah.
And how just deep it goes into the, you know, just the Oklahoma roots. And,
Yeah.
And
how important it is.
It's so important.
Yeah.
And the more I've learned about it, the more that I've really think it's so great now that things are coming out about it and letting people know, because it really does need attention even to this day.
And we're going to do that today.
Yes.
So where do we start?
Well, we can start in Fairfax, Oklahoma.
Okay. I have no idea where that is.
That is...
I'm from Oklahoma all my life. I have no idea.
So most people know Pawhuska,
Okay,
Oklahoma.
that sounds familiar.
Which is where Pioneer Woman is. That's how a lot of people know it. Pioneer Woman is Pawhuska.
Did not know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and Pawhuska is, I wouldn't say it's big, but it's considered kind of the city compared to Fairfax.
Okay.
Fairfax is very small, and it's really kind of in the country, and it's pretty country. Osage County is very, very pretty area. Hilly, not flat. And, you know, when I went to Fairfax and Pawhuska and Fairfax are actually not right next to each other. It's a little drive. I think it's about an hour drive, 45-minute drive. So and that's now. So you would think then it was even further.
Like wooded, and you gotta,
Yes. And so...
Not really paved roads. Wait, what date are we going back to?
We're going back to the 1920s.
1920s, okay.
Yes, and
1920s.
It actually starts kind of before that. Back in the 1870s, the Osage tribe was driven from Kansas to Oklahoma, to the northern part of Oklahoma. But what's interesting about them is they actually were the only tribe that paid for their land back then.
Really?
They were not deeded their land. They paid for it.
Huh. I did not know that.
Yes. And so they were, you know, known to be wealthy 1920s, standards back then. And so they moved to Oklahoma. They realized they had one of the largest oil deposits in the world. And so here comes this, you know, more money, and here comes all of these mineral rights and what made this so important, these were called head rights. And so you had to inherit these rights.
Really?
You couldn't, so basically what that means is if someone passed away, then their next of kin, and then someone passed away, their next of kin.
Right.
And so that's how these mineral rights would be passed down.
So I wonder, if someone passes away and they don't have a next of kin, what happens?
It would go down to a cousin.
Okay.
And then it would go from there. It would go
just
to
whoever's back in the tree.
Yes. Okay. And so, and then it would go to like the in-laws and then their families. And so as they get established, and now it would be over $500 million at that time. And so that we're talking about a lot of money.
Yeah. And this is what the oil is making?
This is what the oil is making.
Oh my gosh.
And so, you can imagine, and when I went to the Historical Society there in Pawhuska, and they were telling us that they had the first painted cars.
What?
And so, cars were not painted before. And so you can imagine.
I never thought about that.
I know. And so, yeah, they had the first painted cars. So, they lived in large homes. A lot of them had, maid service, and they wore the latest fashions. And so we're talking, at one time in 1 year they earned 30 million revenue.
Oh my gosh.
And so
in 1920?
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and it says, I was reading specifically received 400 million specifically.
Oh my gosh.
So,
that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. And so they established the Osage Allotment Act.
Okay.
Of 1906 for substance minerals, because remember, this goes back to the 1800s.
Okay.
When this was started. Well, what they did is they brought in appointments to oversee their mineral rights and help them get money. So they would bring in appointment like guardians.
Okay.
And
now, is this from the government our government is doing this?
The Osage Nation Reservation, they were tribally owned, and they held trust by the U.S. government.
Okay.
So the U.S. government would assign them someone to help them get their equal shares, and help them so they wouldn't get taken advantage of. But yeah.
Dot.
Yes, yeah. I know. Yeah. So
that was a nice thought.
Yeah, I know. So what this did was this would bring in just everyone and anyone to come in, and we're talking political leaders, whereas normally they're guardians. But
that checks out.
Yes, but you would bring in people, attorneys, you'd bring in, they said, all the way to the top, judges, things like that would take advantage.
Of course.
Because, you think
that's a lot of money.
These political leaders, they won't, but, that's not, anyone can be corrupt.
Yeah.
So, and so, it is important to note that one did not have to be an Osage to inherit the Osage head right.
Just familial.
Familial.
Okay.
So it could be husband, so just familial. And so bring in our family that we're talking about. So first, we bring in Molly Burkhart.
Okay.
Who was married to a man named Ernest Burkhart.
Okay.
So she has a sister. She has 3 sisters. The first sister, her name was Minnie.
Okay.
And Minnie died it's September 22nd of 1918.
Now that would have been around the time of the Spanish flu.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a very good, yeah.
Okay.
And so her name was Minnie Smith. And unknown cause of death, or they said, it's been speculated it was a wasting illness. Indigestion is what they called it. And back then you wouldn't have a lot of medicines to help treat. You wouldn't have poison control, and things that you go to the hospital. So
I was wondering about that, and just you guys out there listening, I looked up what a wasting illness was, and how they describe it is simply as an unknown illness that wastes you away. Period.
Wow. Yes.
Just wow. You literally waste away, and they don't know why.
Yes, and you have Minnie who is wasting away, and her family is watching.
Oh, Minnie.
And so she ultimately passed away of 1918, and is suspected that there was poison, and that's what the family suspected at that time. but they didn't know why or who or what.
Yeah.
So then we move to the other sister. Her name was Anna Brown.
Okay.
And so she had been married, I'm guessing. I don't think she was married at the time of her death, but she had been married. Anna had dated, now I had said Burkhart a while ago, so Molly, her sister's husband, Ernest Burkhart,
Okay.
his brother, Byron Burkhart, had dated Molly's sister, Anna.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, that is a
Okay.
lot. So Anna, who you can actually, find a little bit and learn a little bit about Anna more than you can kind of the other sisters except for Molly. They said she was very vivacious. She wore the latest fashions. She liked to, go to Oklahoma City and go to some of the nightlife, but she liked to go to Kansas City and shop. And that's where she bought, because
That sounds like my childhood.
yeah, me too.
Let's go to the big city and go
I
out
know,
shopping.
I know. And so, because, and I lived in Kansas City, in high school. That's where I graduated high school. And they're like 10 years at the time, 10 years back then above fashion. So when I was in school, they were always a year above Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
So, so you can imagine she's going to go where there's this fashion and she can get the latest trends. And so she was kind of a free spirit.
I'm liking her already.
I know that everyone said she was just the coolest.
Yeah.
When you read about her and then go into the Historical Society, they said that she was just neat. And so after Minnie died, so Anna Brown, who on May 22nd, 1921, was her ex-boyfriend, Byron Burkhart, who was also her sister's husband's brother.
My goodness.
In that order. He had called her and said, hey, let's go for a drive. And he had one of his friends with him.
And they had painted cars. So,
yes, painted cars.
You're not going to miss that opportunity.
No. And so she went with them. And she was found in a ravine on...
Whoa, that escalated quickly.
Yes.
Oh my
I know.
gosh.
She just went with him to hang out and was found in a ravine on May 27th.
I have so many questions.
Yes.
I feel like you're going to answer some of them, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
No. And so they thought at first that she was just basically died of natural causes or an accident.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
Weird. One or the other. Those aren't really okay.
Yeah. And so I know.
Those are like few and far between. Not really.
I know. And so
Right.
ultimately the undertaker, who at the time would have done the autopsy, said that there was a gunshot wound to the back of her head.
What?
Yes.
But some of them are saying natural causes.
Uh-huh.
I'm very confused.
Well, there's speculation that she drank a lot. And so they're thinking maybe
that liquor put a bullet in the back of her head.
Yep. That's what they say. I know. But
What? Jack Daniels. Come on,
yeah,
Jack.
Yeah.
Get it together.
I know. So they say, oh, she just went out and she just drank too much and she,
And that killed her.
that she wandered off and ended up
Found with a bullet in.
She had a bullet in the back of her head.
All
and
right.
so, and if you go out to that area, it's very remote by Fairfax.
All of Oklahoma is
Yeah,
remote.
it is. Yeah, it is. Except for right in the city, but outside of that, yeah.
Right in the middle of the city.
Especially there, though.
Yeah.
And so it's really hilly. And so you can't just, especially back then, like even now, you can't drive by and just see because there's rocks and things along the roads.
Hills and ups and downs and roundabouts and
Yeah. So I don't even, honestly, I was thinking when I first, how did they even find her?
Where was she found at?
She was found in that ravine, and there's actually a name for that ravine that they used to go hang out at.
Oh, it was like a local hangout spot?
It was like a hangout that they would go. Now, had she been there before? I don't know.
Huh.
But I know they said people in the town would go there.
I'm wondering how many miles away this ravine is from town, like where they left from.
That's a good question.
It's minuscule details. It probably has nothing to do with anything.
But it's interesting because they did find her, within a couple days.
Yeah.
And so
how would they have found her there? Like they would have had to have been tipped off or something,
Well, and I can, and that's one thing I haven't been able to really to find information about is how
of course
they knew. I knew her family was looking for her.
An anonymous tip.
So, or maybe they just knew that was a place where people went. So they just decided we're going to go
look there first.
Try and see if maybe she could be there. She was one where she was a free spirit. So you wonder if, because it took them a couple days to find her, would they have found her quicker if she wasn't known to just kind of, go and do. So I'm not sure.
Like they would have looked for her quicker.
Yeah, but I know her body was badly decomposed.
Oh my gosh.
And
after 2 days? Well, it's Oklahoma, so
the sun and and
it
so
is really hot here.
Yes, and so I know her sister Molly, who I talked about, Molly Burkhart in the beginning, she had to identify her through her clothes.
Oh my
because
gosh.
she couldn't have been. It
was that bad.
Wasn't able to be identified through.
So then, if she were that bad, I guess I can kind of see where they would have went to like natural causes or whatever first before they got her into the medical examiner, because you probably wouldn't have been able to see like a gunshot wound or something if she were that bad until you get her in there.
Yeah, and I think that's why they thought she just went out and just and kind of went out the night before, but they was not aware that she had went out at the time with her ex-boyfriend Byron Burkhart. So
Byron, you got some splaining to do.
Yes, makes you wonder. And so
wait. This was her car, right? That they took?
Well, I don't know if they took her in a car. I bet they took theirs.
Okay. Because I'm wondering, like, who drove her car back to town? Let's follow up on that.
Yeah, that's a good question, but I don't have any information. I haven't been able to ever find any information on whose car it was. Skip forward to their mother.
Okay. So 2 sisters down.
2 sisters are down.
And we're moving to the mom.
The mom.
Okay.
So their mom's name was Lizzie Q.
That's cute.
I know, it is very cute. Lizzie Q. And, she had 4 daughters. From everything I've read and from being at the Historical Society, very involved in their life. She lived with Molly.
Okay.
And her husband, Ernest Burkhart. And she died again of possible poisoning.
What the heck? Can I ask you, do you have on your timeline how far away or close these murders were to each other?
Sure. Okay. So with Lizzie, the mom of the girls, she was killed in July of 1921.
Okay.
And July. And then Anna, who we had just talked about, that was found with a bullet, she was killed in May 22nd, 1921.
Whoa.
So we're talking about a very close range.
That's like 2 months. Mm-hmm. That's something fishy is going on there.
I know.
Yeah.
Now, you see, the first sister was killed a couple years before.
Yeah.
So,
But that was also that we don't know what happened, could be poisoning.
Yes.
And if you think about it, it's like, well, am I going to get away with this? Let's wait and see.
Yes.
Oh, nobody's done anything about it. Okay, here we go.
Yes. Well,
wow.
And Lizzie Q, the mom, she had 3 headrights at this time.
Okay.
She had her husband who had passed away, not related to this. He had already passed away before, and if he was, there's no information out about it. And then her 2 daughters that have already passed away. So she's got 2 daughters and a husband, so she's got those head rights plus her own rights.
Okay. Who did those pass to?
So
Molly?
when she passed away, those passed to Rita.
Who is Rita?
Rita is the other sister.
Okay.
Rita is the 3rd sister.
Rita is the 3rd sister. Okay.
So, and Rita, we'll kind of get to her in a moment.
Okay.
But so right after them, then their cousin In January of 1923, their cousin Henry Roan, whose father was very prominent in their tribal, he was shot and passed away.
So just a couple years after the mom. Okay.
What I've learned about him is that he actually went with, and we're going to hear this name a lot now, Molly's husband, Ernest Burkhart, and her sister, Anna Brown's ex-boyfriend, Byron Burkhart. They're brothers. Their uncle, his name was William Hell, and this is a name that everybody remember this name in the story. Because
William Hell.
William Hell. He took Henry Roan, their cousin.
Okay.
And this is the story.
The official story.
The official story.
Okay.
He went out drinking with them.
Air quotes.
Air quotes. To a place that was called the Point.
Okay.
A place called the Point. And they got him drunk, and William Hell, who was there, the brother's uncle, asked one of his friends, will you take him out and shoot him?
Whoa!
Yes. And the friend said, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I'm not going to do that.
'Cause murder.
Yeah. And so...
What the heck?
So supposedly, he didn't do this, and he ran off and made his way back to Fairfax. So I don't know how far away the Point is from Fairfax, but it's not directly in Fairfax.
That's a crazy story.
Yes.
There.
So the next day, the friend found out that Henry Roan had been killed.
Okay.
So someone ended up killing him.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And
this isn't looking great for these brothers.
No. And on top of this, William Hell was a pallbearer in Henry Roan's funeral, and he was the beneficiary of a $25,000 life insurance policy.
Okay.
And tried to cash it.
Okay. All right.
So, William Hell. Let's talk a little. Let's stop the timeline for just a minute.
Okay.
And talk a little bit about William Hell now that I've kind of brought him into the story. So, William Hell was a cattle rancher.
Okay.
He was prominent in this politics. He was prominent in the banks. I mean, he was a very prominent figure within Fairfax and Pawhuska.
Okay.
So he was wealthy. How he had originally earned his money, probably from cattle ranching, illegally. Just
rustling.
I have thoughts that maybe it was illegally.
Is it we aren't quite sure, but we assume kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He comes into Fairfax and Pawhuska and kind of infiltrates himself into Molly Burkhart and her family, her sisters, her mom. He infiltrates himself into their life. His nephew Ernest was married to Molly. So that made him, by marriage, related to them.
Okay. I got you.
So, yes.
I see where this is going.
Yes.
All right.
And so he originally came from Greenville, Texas.
Okay.
He was called the King of Osage Hills. That's what he was called. So that could tell you how powerful he was in that community.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, when I went to the Historical Society, there's a picture up on the wall there in Pawhuska that is all of them standing outside, and you have, they're posing and they're smiling, or they're, some of them weren't smiling, but you got some of them that are smiling, and everyone seems to be kind of, at least not mad.
Yeah.
And then you have William Hell right in the middle of the picture, and he has this look on his face I will never forget. And I'm telling you that it is very, very apparent that he just doesn't look like he is a happy man.
I'm looking at some pictures right now. He's kind of smirky, and I do not like his face.
No,
he
was creepy. When I saw him in the at the picture up on the wall, I went, oh my goodness, this is him?
Yeah, he's actually the picture that I have used for the cover.
Oh,
for the
yes,
for the episode.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Yeah. He's he just was not, he was business. Very business, they said. Now, he did have kids. I don't know how many, but I know he had 2 daughters, from what I understand. And he was very to the point, get it done. He worked for the money. I mean, he was not a personable, I'm going to get to know you and be your friend.
He doesn't look personable.
No, he was not.
He does not look even approachable, I'll tell you that.
He does not. So it's said that he had his nephew, Ernest Burkhart, romance Molly and marry her. Now, there's not much information about his brother Byron and the sister, Anna, but I know that he was her ex-boyfriend, so it looks like he was trying to romance.
You got to double up, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got to make sure.
I know. It looks like he was trying to start a romance there, and that didn't work out. And that could be because maybe Anna was such a free spirit that she just, so, but he kind of infiltrates his life. That's kind of what I mean by infiltrates his life, and because he brings his nephews in to try to, romance them. Okay. And Molly marries his nephew. So we go back to Molly's family. After her cousin Henry Roan was killed in January of 1923, you go to March 1923. So we're just talking about 2 months.
Okay.
Molly's sister, who is Rita Smith. Okay. She and her husband,
who, by the way, we just said had all that inheritance, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And they live in a nice house, and she has a maid that lived there with her. Okay. And her children. And it is said that William Hill had someone crawl underneath their house and plant a bomb.
What the heck?
Yes. So there was a bomb that went off.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay.
And ultimately killed Rita, her husband, William Bill Smith, and the housekeeper, Nettie Brookshire. I have seen some things that the children were killed too, but I didn't find much. I have never been able to find much information.
I mean, if you're going to take out somebody who's got that inheritance, you got to take out all of them so that it won't go to anybody else.
I know. And so,
jeez.
I actually have seen where the house was and have seen a makeshift house that was put in place there by the new movie coming out.
Ooh.
Yes.
I'm pretty excited about that.
I know, me too. And so, Killer of the Flower Moon.
Yeah.
And they put this house together and blew it up.
Whoa.
Just like it happened in real life.
That is crazy.
And so, just happened to be when I went to do some research for this, they were filming the movie.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and so they were not there at the moment. So
then everything's set up and stuff.
Everything's set up.
That's really cool.
You couldn't go across the barrier.
Yeah.
But you could see where it was, the house was, they had a car just like in that time.
That's so cool.
And they blew up the house and it was sitting there just like it was.
Oh my gosh.
So I got to get a little bit of an inside, not just looking on a movie screen like right in front of me, set of how that really, and it was to the ground.
Wow.
I mean, there was not like a wall just fell. I mean, it was to the ground.
Yeah.
And those houses there on that street, they're not far away from each other.
Well, I mean, back in the day, weren't most houses, like, if they were set up like that, a lot of them were set up on cinder blocks.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's real easy. I mean, take the whole thing down.
Yeah.
And get under there and take it down. That's crazy.
Well, and it, Molly lived right down the street. Molly lived right down the street from her sister Rita. So Molly, heard all of this.
How has Molly made it so far? Is what I would love to know.
I don't know. And that is one thing that this new movie is kind of around Molly, I think, and her.
Molly is married to Ernest.
Burkhart, who is William Hill's nephew.
So Molly has to stay alive.
Because she has to inherit.
Right, she has to inherit it.
She has to inherit, but
I'm with you. Okay.
Yes, so you see how that's kind of going down that lineage there.
Yep. Okay.
Because her dad, he'd already passed.
Yep.
And so And then,
she's got to stay alive. Yeah.
well,
okay.
then when her sister Rita died, her children and were killed with them.
Right.
And then her sister Anna didn't have any children. So you don't have these other children that are...
We're dwindling it down.
Yes.
Jeez.
Yes. And so it was a very violent blast. And, they said that there were parts that flew all over town.
Oh my gosh.
Parts of this house.
What was this bomb made out of? Like, it was like a homemade bomb, though.
It was a homemade bomb, and I want to say they said something about how like nitroglycerin, like
Gosh. Okay, I did find some pictures, though. Holy cow. That house is gone.
yes,
So she had 5 kids,
5 children,
and all of them were in there?
as far as I know.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. After Rita Smith and her husband died, and their family, Molly and Ernest Burkhart inherited the money from their mother's and sister's estates.
Because, of course.
Yes, and I guess their dads too, because
That's what we're banking on.
yes. So, right after this happened, Molly starts to get sick.
Uh-oh. Oh, man, I could have pegged that one.
Yes, Molly starts to get sick and is, said again, they suspected poison. And so, but Molly does not pass.
That's so strange because poison is usually like a woman's thing.
I know. But who did the poison to the other family members?
Yeah.
So
it makes you wonder, like, whoever is doing this, like, are they high enough that they can get someone else to do it for them?
yes.
Like, are they having servants do this? Or, like, what? Yeah, this is crazy.
So on top of this, why Molly is getting, more sick, they say at least 24 people were found dead. Now, it has been speculated there is not a number in anything you find, even historical society, that is approximate. They do not know.
What?
But they say 24 is a number they know.
Okay.
So
It could be more.
could be more.
Okay.
They said 60.
Holy cow.
PBS.org says 60. So,
Holy cow.
but it could be, I've heard before it was hundreds. I heard in one could be up to 225 people. So it wasn't just their family.
Right.
This just happened to be their family that William Hell infiltrated himself into.
Okay.
But there was said to be, at that time, around that community, it swelled to 35,000 people.
Holy cow.
In Pahaska and around that. So it had doubled. They said it went from 15,000, in the people there coming in because
Right.
of this money coming
Right.
in. So you can imagine it could be anyone coming in, at any level, banker, rancher, anyone to infiltrate themselves into others' lives to gain money or wealth. And they said too that there was more attorneys in that area during that time than all of the United States.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, look at the good I did, but...
And they said that's still that way to this day.
Really?
Yes.
That's crazy.
To this day, they don't have the approximate amount now, but then they did. But now they say that it's still possible that
That's
could be that many.
insane.
Molly's got this money, and there was...
And she didn't die.
No, she didn't die.
Okay.
Now, attorneys that work for the Osage tribe are passing away.
Uh-oh.
There was one that was thrown from a train.
Whoa.
He was thrown from a moving train.
Oh my
One of the
gosh.
Osage attorneys. I think they were that family's attorney, in fact. His name was W.W. Vaughn. We're talking about just the whole community is being terrorized.
Let me ask you a quick question. You might know the answer to, you might not. Was there anyone who was trying to legally take these mineral rights? Like trying to fight it in court or anything like that?
Not that I have been able to find.
So it was just all like, we can't do that. We gotta get in there and get it the old-fashioned way.
Yes, and it was because too that was a head right. So because it was a head right,
head rights.
It was be really hard for someone to come in there and say no, these are mine.
Yeah.
And so because of that, they they had to infiltrate
That is so crazy.
into people's lives.
Do headrights still exist today?
Not with the head rights for the Osage tribe were taken away right after that. They were, and I'll go over and
Okay.
I'll kind of tell you.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to talk about the date. So after the family, Molly's whole entire family has passed, except for her husband and her kids.
Of course.
The Osage tribal police force, they've been investigating this. And they
Hopefully.
they've been investigating this whole time, and they're saying we can't do this now. After the house blew up of Rita, there's like we need more help.
Jeez. Well, yeah, because there's other things happening all over town with other families.
Yes.
Yeah, they probably had their hands full. Was she the only one that was bombed though?
She was the only one I know of that was bombed. Okay. Yes, that was the only bomb that I've read about on any research I've done or at the Historical Society.
Okay.
If there was another one, it was not there. It could have been another city, but not there. So as the tribal, police are asking for the government's help, they bring in the FBI, who right at the time, Hoover had just been appointed.
Old J. Edgar.
Yeah, 29 years old at the time.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, had just been appointed to the head of the federal government, which is now the FBI. Now, at the time, it was not called the FBI.
Right.
It was the Federal Bureau Agency.
Didn't he found the FBI?
Yes.
Hoover? Okay.
He did.
Okay.
So he brings in one of his top kind of people he knew that were really good about getting people in communities to talk that would normally talk.
Okay.
Because at this time, you have to realize a lot of the townspeople were scared to talk because they didn't know if they were next, or it's been said that William Hill intimidated them or paid them off.
I'm sure.
And so no one was talking. So, because I've had people, my students and people say, well, why did it take so long to arrest them? And, if this was suspected, well, because no one was talking.
Yeah.
So Hoover brought in Tom White.
Okay.
And another federal agent to help with this blowing up the house. That's kind of when that turn happened.
Okay.
And they said, we need your help.
This is a little much.
Yes. Yes. And so they bring them in, and they start investigating, and they start acting like they're local ranchers and local to try
undercover.
Yes, undercover to try to be able to make these people feel comfortable to talk.
Okay.
That
makes sense.
People. Yeah, because if they don't know you, they're really not going to talk to you.
Yeah.
And so as they did that, here we bring in Byron Burkhart and Ernest Burkhart. Molly's still, bless her heart, Molly is still taking care of all the family's affairs.
And she overcame this sickness?
She's still sick at this time.
Oh, no. Okay. And she's still taking care of, her kids? And
yes.
Okay.
So she's still,
Oh, mama.
yes. She's a strong woman.
No
strong woman. So January 1926, the federal officers took William Hill, Ernest Burkhart, and John Ramsey, who was supposedly the hired hitman that would do a lot of William Hill's.
Okay. The one that possibly took out Annie?
Well, actually, no. That would have been Rita.
Oh, okay. Rita. Right. Okay.
For the bomb, I think.
I was thinking about like a secret hitman with a gun.
Yeah, well, I think he was. I think he was more the attorney and some other people. Okay. They get them in there and they start talking.
Oh my goodness.
They start talking. There was also another guy named Kelsey Morrison. So Kelsey Morrison had went with Byron Burkhart to take Anna on the drive.
Right.
So Kelsey Morrison was Byron Burkhart's friend, and another one that was just kind of involved.
Can we just say though, like they killed her, right?
Yes.
I'm just saying, that's just my opinion.
Oh no. Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah. So they brought them in, questioned them, and they all start singing like canaries. And William Hill maintained his innocence.
Oh, well, of course.
He never admitted to doing anything wrong, ever, as far as I know, to his death. Between June 1926 and November 1929, the defendants were tried in federal and state courts. So they were tried in both.
Okay. I didn't know you could do that.
Yes.
But let's do it. I'm for it.
in Guthrie, Oklahoma City, Pawhuska, and Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
Oh, my gosh.
So, because you have all these different players.
Right.
And so.
Like one court system would probably get super bogged with that.
Yes.
I guess,
yes.
Split it up a bit.
So, in June 1926, Ernest Burkhart pleaded guilty and received a life sentence for the murder of William Smith.
Okay.
So, what's interesting to me is he received a life sentence for the murder of William, which is Rita Smith's husband.
Right.
But I don't see that I never saw that Rita Smith
But
was
he was
included in that.
He was in the house though with her, right?
Yes.
And the kids.
Yes.
So what did maybe they just thought, well, one life sentence is enough. We've got him.
Yeah, I don't really know how that worked back then. That's
crazy.
interesting. Something to do more research into.
Well, also, I'm just going to throw this out there. Also, back in that day, like, it was that misogynistic, the man's more important than the woman type of thing. So it could have just been like, for her. Like, let's just get it for the guy.
That's it was kind of a good old boys type thing back then.
Ugh.
Yeah. So Burkhart testified against Hill and Ramsey.
Okay.
John Ramsey, whom in January and November 1929 were sentenced to life at Leavenworth, Kansas.
Okay.
For the murder of Henry Roan, which was the cousin.
Okay.
Burkhart testified against William Hill and Ramsey, who was the friend who was convicted of killing Henry Roan.
Okay.
So, which is interesting because Ramsey had said he ran off into the woods and that he found him dead the next day. So
hard eye roll.
Yes. So we're not talking about any of these guys that are on the up and up.
Yeah.
Here.
And they both testified against Hale.
Yes.
Okay.
So Kelsey Morrison, who went with Byron Burkhart with Anna, they considered him, they said he was kind of a petty criminal. He admitted to killing Anna.
Whoa.
Yes.
I nailed it.
Yes. Yes. And Byron Burkhart went and turned state's evidence and was not tried.
Why?
I do not know.
Because
there's not a whole lot
because I guess they got one and there's a whole bunch of stuff to get to, so let's just... But everybody should be held accountable for their part in it. This is frustrating.
I know, but Byron Burkhart, he turned state's evidence on everyone and was not tried.
Oh my god.
That was, I guess, his plea deal.
Byron!
I know. I know, because I guess maybe they didn't have any evidence on him and he didn't admit it. So he just turned on, they said, okay, if you know.
What?
Yeah, so.
God, so stupid.
I know.
All right.
So, Hill was convicted and sentenced to life in prison.
Oh my goodness.
And this is where...
Just one life sentence?
I know. So this is where it gets really...
Oh no. What are you about to tell me?
So, Hill, Ramsey, and Burkhart were eventually paroled.
Are you kidding me?
No.
So they got life sentences. That's why I said just one. Okay. And they
were paroled. And the Oklahoma governor, Henry Bellman, paroled in 1965.
What?
And it is sad that I've read in some pretty, PBS.org and some pretty reputable, that Truman, when he got elected president, said he was going to make it a mission to pardon Hill. Now, whether that's true, I do not know, but that is, I've got it from pretty reputable.
That sounds like that's nonsense.
I know, it's just...
Truman, get out of here.
I know. The buck stops here. I mean, So it was said the reason this came about is because Hale's daughter was married or had relationship or knew some with a senator.
Okay.
And so that's the rumor, is that he got himself pardoned, and that in the governor and the president's because of her.
Oh,
and because of that relationship. And so that's what helped them get pardoned.
I mean, that's a good cover for racism.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I know. It's awful. No, it's awful. And, and I just want to say, they had them in maximum security.
They should have.
Because
for sure.
Hale was in Leavenworth. I think he was in Leavenworth, Kansas, and that's a maximum security. And then I think he got moved to Arizona, I want to say, when he was paroled.
Okay.
But Burkhart was in McAllister.
Right.
Which is very maximum security, and they've had, some serial killers going through there. I'm sure Leavenworth has too.
Yeah.
So they go from this maximum security to parole.
Like, that makes no sense to me.
Yes. So,
I mean, at least it wasn't like a pardon. It wasn't like a presidential pardon or anything like that. It was just like, all right, you can go home.
It's
That's
just
so stupid.
I know.
How frustrating.
After 1925, a federal law came in and said that non-Osage could not inherit the head rights of tribal members possessing more than 1/2 Osage blood.
So people like these guys who just married into the family couldn't have that.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense.
It would stop. But I believe now that the head rights is no longer even
a thing.
Even a thing. So William Hale, he died in 1962 in Arizona.
Okay.
And he got pardoned on July 31st, 1947.
Okay, so he was paroled and then he was pardoned. Mm-hmm. Come on.
Yes, so he was paroled, and that's where that that time came in.
Ugh.
So,
Ugh.
Yes. I know, I was looking at that and I was like, there's two things here. So he died in Phoenix, or in Arizona, I don't know about Phoenix. He died in Arizona, William Hale, in 1962. Good riddance.
Good.
Good riddance.
Good. He lived too long, if you ask me.
I know. Molly, who ended up being Molly Cobb.
And she never died, right?
She did.
Well, I mean, it's 2022, so of course she died. But I mean,
but she did not die of the poisoning.
Okay, good.
But she did end up dying of kind of a young death in June 16th of 1937.
Aw.
I do not know why, but I know that it was several years after that, so it was not from the
like
poisoning.
10 years after she was poisoned. But it wasn't her husband.
No, she was Molly Cobb when she died, so she was not Molly Burkhart.
Good for her.
So she got divorced from him.
I'm wondering if any of these people actually got their hands on those head rights.
That's interesting. I don't know.
Well, I mean, her husband kind of did.
He did, yeah.
Got a taste of it, but it went to her, technically, not to him. So I'm sure he was just kind of like, hey, can we spend $1 billion here?
Oh, yeah. And it makes me think that if all this hadn't happened at the timing, they probably would have ended up poisoned fully, Molly.
Yeah.
And then what makes me think Ernest Burkhart thinks he's safe,
Well, yeah.
And so William Hale's going to want the money for himself.
Exactly. It could have gone on and on. And my thought when we were talking about that is, does the money immediately go to him or does it go to her kids? So then are we going to have to take the kids out? And then, of course, they're going to come after him. And then it's going to just keep going up the ladder and up the ladder until he finally gets his hands on it. Because that was the ultimate goal anyway.
Yes.
So
was to be...
It's going to keep going and going.
To have the money for himself. And so, fortunately, he did not get his hands on that money.
Good.
And he, I wish he would have spent his whole life in prison.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, justice was not done in this.
Kind of, but not really.
Kind of, but not really. As teaching victimology and seeing a case like this, and because this is really, to me, the ultimate victimology case.
Yeah.
you have so many victims at play. And it's not just Molly who survived her family. The town of Fairfax and Pawhuska. I mean, could you imagine having these things? And you know that William Hill is, and Burkhart and Ramsey and all these people are,
players in this.
In this, and they're in prison. But is there anyone else?
Yeah.
Because there's, they said there was...
How many henchmen does he have?
Well, and, they said in some articles I've read that they said, this could be such a much bigger conspiracy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So they were probably in fear for a long time. Mm-hmm. In fact, it was said that a lot of them would go away and go to Colorado to take during the whole winter because they were scared.
Jeez.
They would leave.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine being in a town where, especially in the neighborhood where someone just got blown up, their whole family just got blown up. And you're like, okay, but I have head rights too. So what now? What do we do? Where do we go? That's just crazy to think about. Yeah, this reminds me a lot of, it does and it doesn't, reminds me a lot of the Tulsa Race Massacre.
Yes.
A lot.
Yes. And it's just, it just breaks your heart.
Yeah.
You talk about it and it's so intricate and there's so many parts to it. It's even hard to remember just listening to it one time. But when you really get down to the heart of the story, it's really about survival.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to just live your life.
Yeah.
And just, and that was taken away from the Osage Native Americans. Mm-hmm. They were forced to, number one, leave Kansas and go to Oklahoma when they paid for their land.
Yeah.
And then they
get there and then they're terrorized.
They're terrorized for years.
Yeah.
And it just really, it breaks your heart and it makes you really think about the things we have in place now and how lucky we are now that we have. And, I always tell my students, technology is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It can either help you or it can break you.
Mm-hmm.
But in a way that it could help this is that, there weren't cameras, there weren't things, you wouldn't see someone go into your house putting a bomb. I mean, there were things that were just not, there weren't cell phones, there was not ways to, even though if you didn't live by each other, to be able to just call each other up on your cell phone and say, I'm in trouble, or this is happening to me, or, so a lot of times these things happen before family members or other people realize it's happening to them.
Right.
To where it's happening to them.
Yeah.
So, it's not just that easy to just be able to go, okay, this person's been murdered, we're going to get this killer.
Right.
It's especially when you're remote.
Yeah. And that's also, I think, why witnesses were so vital back then.
Yes.
Because, back then there wasn't much in the way of evidence collecting as we see it today.
No.
So back then it was if you don't have a witness or you don't have somebody who can roll over on somebody else, you don't really have much.
No.
Yeah.
And that's why the federal government, the agents had to come in and really act like they were, lived in the community, part of the community, to be able to get anyone to even talk. And in the end, no one really did. It ended up being the Burkhart.
Yeah.
Burkharts who talked.
Well, I mean, they got to them somehow.
They did.
So, but you never know if it was a community member or something, or if they just stumbled upon it, or that's just so crazy.
And it's just sad because, I see this now, and I see that it's got to affect those family members now.
Oh, yeah.
Because,
that's part of their history.
That's part of their history.
Yeah.
And they're, and they were terrorized, taken advantage of. They were treated as if they didn't matter. And, it was the money. It wasn't them.
All about the Benjamins.
Yeah. And, and so you think about that they have to live with that.
Yeah.
For lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And so, it's so important to have all these resources that we do now as far as counseling and safety resources and different things, because that is really, well, who's to say that didn't happen back then, it can't happen now?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we have technology on
Yeah.
our side now, but still.
You don't want history to repeat itself.
No.
Yeah.
And so, you don't want another William Hill
No.
in anyone's
No.
life.
No. And it's so crazy because I talked about earlier in the season, I talked about Pitcher, Oklahoma.
Yes.
And this also reminds me of that case because it was just coming in and being like, oh, here's you some land, which their land was given to them. But it's here's you some land. And oh, wait, did you say something about oil? Oh, I think we'll just take that back. And
Yeah.
like, it's just like insane how stuff like this happens. And then there's no one to really help them. And so you have to put things in place, and they're in place for a reason. And it's just crazy.
Well, then they appointed guardians,
Yeah.
appointees, guardians to help them, and they took advantage of them.
Yeah. Well,
So-
and that didn't make any sense to me either, because it's like, what do I need a guardian for? It's like it feels like you just want someone to come in and watch what I'm doing, really. And they kind of were the
With
ones
my
that were
own
taking
money.
advantage. Yeah. So, you really don't want history to repeat itself. And I actually didn't even know about this case. Like the crazy part is that when you are in school in Oklahoma, we have Oklahoma history.
Yes, I remember taking it, yes.
Yeah. I did not learn about this.
No, me either. It was not
No.
something in our textbook, and it should have been.
It should have been, as well as, the Tulsa Race Massacre and a lot of
Oh,
other
that was
things.
not in there
Yeah.
either. No.
And like, I don't even know about these things until I'm 30 something years old. It's not right.
I know, and this case, and I didn't, like I said, when I first found this case, I thought, it had a lot of layers to it, but I didn't really grasp really how deep into our culture and to Oklahoma history it really was, and to how much this family had just been mistreated, and the Osage Indian tribe had been mistreated. I mean, it was just awful.
Yeah.
Just awful. And the more I learned about it, the more I was like, wow, like this case is something that people really need to learn about, and they really need to be aware of, because it's only when we're aware of things and we learn things through education that we know how to change things.
Exactly.
And we know how to stop things.
Exactly. And it's sad that we're learning this probably right now on this podcast.
Yeah. Yes, I know.
Than in school,
I know.
So I hope that changes in the future.
I do too. And that's one thing that, I try to teach.
At least if they don't learn it in grade school, they'll learn it from you.
Then come
in
learn it in my
college.
class. Yes. Then come learn it in my class, because these are important things, and, people need to really be educated on different cases, and educated on the things that happen in our world. Just like the, Amber Alert. That started from somewhere, and people are like, that just came out of thin air. No, it didn't.
No, Amber Hagerman.
Yeah, I mean, and the first anti-stalking laws, people don't know that came from a case from
California, wasn't it?
It was California, and Robert Lombardo was stalking an actress from the show My Sister Sam.
Yeah, I remember that now.
And he walked up to her front door.
I remember that, yeah.
And she had her name on the door. Rebecca.
I know.
Rebecca Schaefer was
That
her
gets
name.
me.
And
But we know better now.
yes, we
hopefully.
do. But he had paid a private attorney to get her address. And you can't.
Yeah, you can't
do that now.
You can't do that.
And she would answer her own fan mail. Just things.
Yeah.
She thought she was doing great, with it. And he came to her door and ultimately killed her when she opened the door. And I've been to her where she lived, and it is very. You just open the door and you're there. There's not really any protection against. But from that, California started the very first anti-stalking laws. Yeah. And, then they went across country, and people don't know that. Yeah. And so these cases change history.
Yes. Yeah. And they changed the law.
Yes. And I hate they have to happen, because none of this should ever happen.
No.
But again, by knowing these things, we can change history.
Yeah.
And we can help.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the things that really did change history are the things that are now like mass shared, like
Yes.
that we are hearing about it, not just in like the locality of where it happened, but things that have been shared nationwide. And then people are like, oh, that can't stand, change it.
Yes. And so that's exactly, that is where technology, and they're like, technology is bad. And I'm like, but
It can be used
but it
for
can be
good.
good for good.
Yeah.
Because if we didn't have technology, we wouldn't know a lot. We wouldn't know about serial killers that
Yep.
are in our area. If there was one, like the trucking serial killer that would drive, we wouldn't
Yeah.
know about those truck stops.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know.
Was that the I-40?
I-40, yeah, I-40 killer. We wouldn't know if there was something, what was going on in our area. And so it can be, and I know sometimes it's over sensationalized. I mean, I know
Yeah.
I do see that.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the facts and
Right.
this, and it's the facts itself. And like we had talked about earlier, sometimes the fact itself and the truth itself, you had
Yeah.
said, one of your family members had said, it's worse than
Yeah.
fiction.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But one of the reasons why I do this podcast, a lot of podcasts romanticize,
Yes.
and they don't really have a lot of the facts, the details of the case. They just want to tell you something sensationalized. That's not what we're here for. We're here to tell you as many facts as we can possibly fit in your ears.
Yes. Yes.
And we want you to know these things because we want you to be aware, to be vigilant, to see red flags when you can see them, to help your friends, to help your neighbors, to help yourself, keep yourself safe, and change the course of the future,
History.
by learning history. Because that's what this is. That's what true crime is. Like people say, oh, true crime's okay, but true crime it's also a human interest piece. It's also history.
Yes.
So when we don't share our history, we don't make the changes we need to make. And that's what we're doing.
And the cycle will repeat itself.
Yeah. And you
It
gotta
will.
end the cycle.
That's why in 1970s there were so many serial killers, because
Oh, yeah.
the cycle kept repeating itself. And
Nobody caught it.
yeah, and now with DNA, a lot of that, if we didn't have all of that, would DNA have ever come along? I mean,
Yeah.
all these things happen, and they're horrible and they should never happen. But if they do happen, we can use the results for good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for
I
having
enjoyed it.
me and letting me tell this story and,
Yeah.
and advocate for the Osage Native American tribe.
Absolutely.
Because they really deserve.
Advocation.
Yes, they do. Yes,
Absolutely. Yeah.
You've reached the end of our episode. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Join Raven next time on the Sirens Podcast.
Do we have an outro? That's our outro, isn't it?